This week on Urban Teacher TV, I'm going to be interviewing Oliver Quinlan, the EdTech researcher, and finding out all of the latest stuff and insights what's happening in education. Welcome, Oliver, to Urban Teacher TV.
Thank you.
A pleasure to have you here, and it'd be lovely to hear what are you doing at the moment and what the future kind of holds for yourself. So please tell us about your background in teaching when you first became.
Okay, sure. So, well, I got into teaching through being an IT support technician in a school. My mum's actually a head teacher, so I was helping out there when I was at university in the school and helping with the technical problems and things. And I found I was working more and more with the teachers on making the most of the technology that they had and seeing opportunities to use it more. So I really enjoyed that. So I thought I would develop that interest by actually going into teaching myself.
So what subject would you teach him?
So I was teaching in primary, so right across the board. My degree is in history, so I did think about going into secondary history teaching, but I was always really interested in kind of learning more broadly and how it all slots together. So I thought primary was a good area for me to be able to do that.
And I've known you for a long time, so from taking a step out of the classroom into education and research and at Nesta, I'd love to hear more. How did that happen and what have you been doing since you've left the classroom?
Okay, well, I moved on from teaching to work at Plymouth University in teacher training, which was still quite a lot of teaching. It was just teaching undergraduates and PGC students rather than just children. But it gave me a lot of time to work on some research and work with lots of different schools. I did some work helping to set up a free school in Plymouth and looking at how they use the technology. So I got really interested in research and trying to really dig in and understand it. And then the opportunity came up at Nesta to work on some big research projects working with schools right across the country. So I spent the last couple of years working with around about 100 schools right across the country and hundreds of teachers and thousands of children.
So what's been some of the research you've been looking at?
So I've been looking at 3 specific different types of technology in schools, all in different ways and at different scales. So the biggest project that we've done has been looking at one-to-one tutoring over the internet in primary schools with a company called Third Space Learning, who provide tutors for primary children falling behind in their maths. So we worked with about 60 schools for that, and it's a random controlled trial, so some of the schools have been randomly chosen to get this extra tutoring. Some of them have carried on as normal, and the children have had that extra tutoring support for a year, and now we're just waiting to hear back the results on how much difference it's made on their exam scores, which is the nail-biting bit.
Yeah, because I've seen you run a few events in the past around young people using technology. What are the insights that you're finding at the moment with young people and this whole thing around this digital age that we're in?
Okay, well, I did a big research project called Young Digital Makers, which was looking at young people and how they're getting involved with using technology. And I think one of the biggest things that we found from that is just how interested young people are in technology. Had 82% of them saying they were really interested in doing more digital making, whether that was making music with technology or trying scientific experiments or creating images or making websites, so many different things they could be doing. But the most interesting bit for me was how much the parents wanted to support them, but how much often the parents said they didn't really quite know where to go and what to do to help their children and young people in their lives to just take that a bit further.
Yeah, because I know as a teacher myself, parent engagement has been one of those things that I've been really hot on, because to really get technology used properly, you need to involve everybody into the mix. So apart from parents probably displaying their lack of tech skills, did you find anything else about what parents were coming out of that research?
So in terms of parents, basically parents were really interested in learning more about digital technology themselves, and also thought it was really, really important for young people in terms of them getting jobs in the future and them learning the skills they're going to need for future life. 99% of parents said they thought it was really important that we're now teaching computing as part of the national curriculum, which is really, really great. But they need to have some avenues to help their young people tap into these through interests that they get. I think there's lots of parents out there who are really into technology themselves, and so they're doing things like Raspberry Pi jams with their parents, with their children. They're getting their children involved in these things through an interest in technology. One of the things I think that we could use to grow it even more is to help parents who are interested in other things see how they can use technology with those children in those areas. So for instance, we've supported an organisation at Nesta called Black Country Atelier, and they've been doing some work within fashion and clothing and helping young people to use 3D printing to design new things to do with fashion. And I think those kind of ways of getting into technology are really interesting.
So I know, Oliver, that you do a lot of educational research, and also you've done a little bit about EdTech, and in that space. I'd love to hear more on what type of stuff you've been doing in that realm.
Yeah, so one of the parts of my current job has been trying to sort of support some of the EdTech companies that are kind of growing up around London. Nesta has an investment fund that has invested in a number of different things, but quite a lot of education technology. So I've done quite a bit of work looking at what's growing up in there and what's happening. And there's so many exciting companies in London producing kind of learning solutions.
And what's the pattern? What's the pattern? Are they doing something different from the norm? Because we know that a lot of EdTechs, when they come out in the first year, they just disappear, or they run out of the funding, and they fail.
Well, one of the things that I see quite a lot is people with really good ideas. Sometimes they're teachers, but not always teachers. Sometimes people from outside the system come up with great ideas as well. And people who start up companies to really work hard on these great ideas, and they're very, very focused on the idea. Often there are teams of people who lack people with the experience on the business side. So they sort of get started, but then they don't necessarily have the skills and the experience on their team to really grow that into something that's going to be sustainable and is going to be bringing in the money. So I think the advice that I always try to give to people who've got a great idea and trying to move it forward is that it's not just about the idea. That's kind of, everybody thinks that's the magic bit.
That's probably 5%, because it's a massive mammoth task at the end of it, trying to get a sales force, trying to encourage these young people or even adults to think about it's just more than the idea. You need a whole ecosystem to actually fuel that.
Definitely, and I'm sure that's the case for any type of product in any type of area, but things specifically that are designed for schools. Selling to schools is hard work. You've got to convince schools that things are really educationally worthwhile and going to be value for money, and it's quite a lot of conversations that you have to really get people on board and get them to trust in your product. So there's a lot that has to be done to make that happen.
And do you feel that some EdTechs miss out on the pedagogy side of it all, or?
I don't know. I see lots of different approaches to this. I have to say that sometimes people really try and focus on this idea of disrupting how the classroom works and having new approaches to learning. And they don't always call that pedagogy because they're not necessarily from a teaching background, but I think that's often what they mean. Those types of approaches are quite difficult to get into schools because the whole system and structure is there to sort of not be disrupted. So some of the more successful things I've found have been things that work alongside the existing pedagogies that are happening. So things like third space learning. So third space learning have a really innovative way of providing tutors, mathematics experts to children, but they don't try and take over the whole maths lesson. They provide something that's an additional thing that the teachers can tap into and use to bring their students forward. And I don't know, lots of education, there are approaches that do need to change and it does need to evolve and develop, but it's got to be, I think, a process working with teachers rather than trying to disrupt them, blow them out of the water.
And that's a really great point. And I think a few weeks ago you just launched a report on flipped learning, and I'd love to hear more about that. What made you do the research behind it, and what were some of the findings?
Well, what we were trying to do with that is that lots of people are talking about flipped learning as potentially one of these disruptive approaches to learning. And different people are doing different things with it. And most of what I saw in school was a different approach to the way that Sal Khan from the Khan Academy describes it, which is teaching new things through video at home and then using the lesson time for much more active face-to-face learning. And that often isn't the way that it happens. So we thought, let's do some research, let's try doing that and see how well it works. And it was something that was disruptive for some teachers, and it was really interesting to see the different ways that it was adopted in different schools. Some teachers very quickly embraced it and quite liked being able to take a much more active approach in their classroom and delegate the direct teaching off to a video. Other teachers found it much more difficult to trust those video resources, and some of them actually used different resources to Khan Academy. Some of them opted to use Hegarty Maths because they wanted something closer to the British curriculum. So different teachers adopted it in different ways, and one of the things I think I learned from that is that different teachers do have really different styles, and there's probably different types of EdTech to support those different styles or to help those different styles to sort of evolve rather than totally disrupting them. A teacher very focused on group work and peer assessment is probably going to be a good candidate for flipped learning because they're going to develop that, whereas a teacher who's very focused on that kind of delivery of lessons can be really effective, but it's going to be a very big change for them to flip things.
And I think that when I look at technology and hear some of the reports that come out that technology will eventually take over teachers in the classroom or help poor teachers in this space to become excellent teachers, is that true at all, or is it a thing that you always need teachers and for them to be actually trained well to deliver most of this tech?
I keep changing my mind on this.
Okay.
I keep swinging between different points and positions. Currently, what I think is that the school system you will not be able to replace teachers in the school system because schools are designed around the ideas of teachers and classes. But if you look at learning more broadly, I think technology is making huge changes to that. So the types students are going into school and they're getting out of school what they get out of school and often getting a lot of value out of it. But then they're going home and they're using all of these other things in more informal settings, sometimes to learn more of what they learned at school and to revise and consolidate, sometimes to learn completely different things, like maybe really developing an interest in a musical instrument or something like that. So I think overall, I think technology is going to have a huge input to people's learning, but in schools, the teachers are one of the most, a school isn't really about the building, is it? It's about the community, the people, the teachers.
Yeah, something that I preach about online. And last question for me, Oliver, is that where do you see this space? From all the research that you're doing and all of this science stuff that we're hearing about that technology can offer and how education is moving, where do you see, what's going to happen in space in the next 5 years or 10?
Well, I'm really careful to kind of be quite distinct about two different areas in which I work. There's the digital making, the learning about computers and technology and how it works, and then there's the using technology as a tool for learning. Now, I think the technology as a tool for learning is going to be a slow adoption because we have such solid structures in the place of schools already. People need to slowly evolve what they're doing and take that on board. Some days I think, wouldn't it be wonderful if just suddenly everything changed? And it was but that's not going to happen. It's going to be a slow change. But in the area of learning how to make technology and how to engage in technology, I can see much more rapid changes where young people are able to already. Some of the shining examples are young people making apps and making devices and technology that really solve problems within their lives and their communities. And at the moment, there's wonderful individual examples, but I think we're going to see more and more of those, and it's going to become more normal for young people to look at a problem and say, I could use technology to make an impact on this.
And how do people get in contact with you or see more of the research that you've done? Because that would be a lovely thing for people to do once looking at this channel.
Okay, well, the research I've been doing the last couple of years is on nesta.org.uk. My kind of central website is oliverquinlan.com, and I try and link off to that to all the other things that I've been doing. And I also do a newsletter as well, which people can sign up for, which you can access through that website, oliverquinlan.com.
So thank you, Oliver, for joining me on Urban Teacher TV.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you.